Well, I have not prepared a full homily for this week because I'm enjoying a little bit of time away. But I did want to offer just a brief thought about our gospel for this Sunday. And that's because it's the beginning of Matthew chapter 25, which is broken up into three parts over these next 3 Sundays, which are actually the last 3 Sundays that we have of ordinary time, so the end of the liturgical year, as we prepare for the beginning of the liturgical year with the season of Advent. And fittingly, we're looking at Matthew 25 as reflecting on the end of all things, so the end of the liturgical year, the end of all things, Christ's second coming. And so it's about being prepared for that kingdom. So I will link to a video by Dr. Brand Petrie, who really breaks down very beautifully this gospel passage, because it might be a little bit hard to understand what's going on and what this is all about with the virgins and the lamps. But I just want to focus kind of on that one of the last lines that we hear today. And that is where Jesus tells the virgins, "I do not know you." And this points us to the fact that salvation begins with really knowing Jesus. That's where it all has to begin. And it's about being prepared to be with Jesus again, to be ready to spring into action, to be ready to invite Jesus when he's coming again. So knowing Jesus is the beginning of our salvation. And over the next 2 weeks, we'll continue to hear about how that fits into our response in terms of using what God gives to us in the parable of the talents next week, and then the famous judgment with the sheep and the goats, whether we have served others the way Jesus, whether we see Jesus in other people and serve others as if they were Jesus. All of that tied into our salvation as well. But it has to begin with that relationship with Jesus. Do we know Jesus? Are we prepared for him to come again? That's what Jesus wants us to reflect on and focus on. So we want to ask that question as we reflect on this chapter 25 over these next couple of weeks. And even you might want to look back at chapter 24, which also is about the end of all things, to have that deeper experience of what is Jesus trying to tell us about that relationship with him and about being prepared. He tells us we won't know the exact time or hour, but we can be spiritually prepared, ready and excited to welcome him to come into our lives, whether that be come into our lives in terms of simply our daily prayer or simply through the gift of the Eucharist, which we should not take for granted, but also to be prepared for him to come at the end of all things. And so let's all take Jesus into our heart and ask that we can truly know him so that we can be prepared for his coming, his daily coming, but also the coming at the end of all things.